Everyone likes to say the same things whenever MMORPGs come up. You only liked World of Warcraft because you were young. You had more time back then. The internet was different. And honestly, all of that is true. But that explanation is incomplete. Back in the early days, MMOs weren't just games. They were social platforms before social platforms really existed. There was no Discord, no Twitter, no group chats that followed you everywhere. Even forums were awkward, slow, and disconnected from real-time interaction. So, MMORPGs filled that gap. The earliest MMOs were basically chat rooms with a game attached. The gameplay was slow, sometimes boring, sometimes clunky, often outright janky. But that wasn't the point. The point was being there, standing in a city and watching people run past, waiting for a boat, talking to strangers while grinding mobs, recognizing the same names day after day, existing in a shared space where nothing was optimized and nothing was urgent. And that part matters, because here's the thing people don't talk about enough. Even if a brand new MMO launched tomorrow, one that perfectly recreated Classic WoW or any other old MMO, most of you still wouldn't like it. Not because it wouldn't be well made, not because it wouldn't be faithful, but because it wouldn't be for you anymore. Let me ask you something, honestly. Do you enjoy slow games? Not deep games, not challenging games, I mean slow. Games like Kingdom Come Deliverance. Games that ask you to walk instead of sprint, to plan instead of react, to fail repeatedly before anything clicks, to repeat tedious actions until mastery quietly sets in. If you bounced off that experience, if your immediate reaction was, I don't have time for this, or this doesn't respect my time, or I've got better things to do, then an old school MMORPG was never going to work for you again. Because that's what those games are. They're slow, they're repetitive, they're inefficient by modern standards. And most importantly, they demand commitment. Not attention, commitment. And commitment is expensive now. Look at the games competing for our attention today. Expedition 33, Silksong, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Blueprints, Dispatch. Some of these you'll love, some you won't, that's normal. But ask yourself this, honestly. Would you rather spend your limited free time farming mobs in an MMO, repeating the same loop night after night, hoping your group logs on, hoping your schedule lines up? Or would you rather play a tightly designed, finite experience that respects your time and gives you a real ending? You might be the rare person who still chooses the MMO. I thought I was that person too. But every time I tried, the same thing happened. Friends slowly dropped off, schedules stopped lining up, guilds quietly dissolved. That journey stretched on forever, without ever reaching a satisfying conclusion. And eventually, I was left with hundreds of hours invested and nothing that actually felt complete. You'll often hear influencers say this: modern MMOs are designed for solo players only. And that's true, but older MMOs weren't. They were never meant to be played alone. Their magic came from shared struggle, from inconvenience, from friction, from needing other people to progress at all. You couldn't just queue up and be done in 20 minutes. You had to talk, you had to wait, you had to rely on strangers. Yes, those games still exist today. Classic servers exist, private servers exist. WoW Classic, Ultima Online, EverQuest, you name it. So ask yourself something uncomfortable. If this is what people truly wanted, why are these servers so niche? Why don't they dominate the market? Because deep down, even people who say they want them don't actually want to live that life anymore. They want the feeling they remember without the lifestyle it required. People love to say that group finders ruined MMOs, and World of Warcraft specifically, that the moment you stopped spamming chat for groups, the social fabric disappeared. But here's the truth nobody likes to admit. You don't actually want to go back to that. You don't want to sit in some capital city or dungeon entrance for 45 minutes, copy-pasting the same message into chat, hoping 5 strangers are doing the exact same content you are. Content you'll probably only run once, maybe twice, and never touch again. That wasn't meaningful social interaction. That was friction. And confusing friction for depth is one of the biggest nostalgia traps in MMO discussions. The idea that group finders or Discord killed the social aspect is a false equivalency. What they really did was give players control. Now you get to choose how social you want to be. Maybe you just worked a full day and you don't want to perform social labor just to play the game. You want to log in, do something, and log out. Group finders make that possible. Or maybe you do want to talk. You can still do that. Guild chat still exists. Discord exists. Voice chat exists. And if what you really want is the old experience, the slow one, the inconvenient one, you can still have it. The option of private servers never went away. What changed is that most people didn't choose it. And that matters. Because back then, a lot of those systems only felt good because there were no alternatives. No Discord, no Skype, no easy coordination. If you were a student with tons of free time, sitting around spamming chat might have felt like part of the experience. But today, most players don't want that, especially casual players. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Games have to cater to casual players. The moment you build a game only for the sweatiest players, something weird happens. The game becomes too sweaty even for the sweats. There are no new players to stomp, no fresh blood, no one to impress. You don't get epic clips, you don't get wild montages. You just get a tiny group of the absolute best players and everyone else leaves. And we already know that. In every MMO, the hardcore players are a fraction of the player base. They're important, but they can't carry an entire game on their own. Group finders didn't kill MMOs. They exposed a truth people don't like to face. What many players miss isn't forced social interaction. It's a time in their life when inconvenience felt affordable. Most players today don't jump between genres constantly. They have a comfort game. A game where the rules are familiar, where the systems are predictable, where the dopamine loop is understood, where learning cost is low. Changing that is hard. That's why you don't see massive grassroots demand for old school MMORPGs. What you see instead is nostalgia, YouTube essays, comment sections, influencers telling you things were better back then. They weren't better. They were right for who we were at the time. Remember when everyone wanted to make a WoW killer? Almost all of those games failed. Not just because they were worse than WoW, but because people didn't actually want the same thing again. The MMORPGs that survived did something different. Guild Wars 2 rejected the traditional quest treadmill. Final Fantasy XIV leaned into narrative, structure, and reinvention. The MMOs that tried to clone WoW disappeared. And that's not a coincidence. There's a great parallel here from fantasy writing. Brandon Sanderson once talked about Tolkien's influence on the genre, and how writers who tried to copy Tolkien failed, not just because they lacked skill, but also because repetition kills wonder. You can only read so many elves, dark lords, and ancient prophecies before the magic fades. Games are the same. You can't recreate WoW's magic by recreating WoW. That magic existed at a very specific intersection of time and who you were as a person. And that moment is gone. It's not that MMORPGs are dead, it's not that developers are incompetent, and it's not that modern gamers are lazy. It's that you changed. Your life changed. Your priorities changed. Your relationship with time changed. And that's okay. There will never be another MMORPG like the one in the past for you. Not because it can't be made, but because the version of you who needed it no longer exists. And maybe the healthiest thing we can do is stop trying to resurrect the past and appreciate it for what it was, and continue playing and helping developers and ourselves understand what we truly want from a modern MMO.